Hello, lovely beings. 'Tis I, your host, Autumn Oakley. Welcome to Awaken Mindset, a podcast of awakening authenticity, shifting mindset, and expanding energy. There is such beauty in this life when we are willing to face the truth of ourselves in order to truly see. It's in awareness we gain control over our reality. Hello, lovely beings. Welcome to today's episode of Awaken Mindset. 'Tis I, your host and energy and mindset guide, Autumn Oakley. So today's episode, I want to hop into, some unique perspectives and tools you can take into your life to overcome depression and anxiety. And this, is something I suffered with, for decades, coming in and out of these chronic cycles of dark depressions, not wanting to exist in this world, and chronic anxiety to the point where I was having panic attacks quite often, feeling like my insides were about to burst out. So I've gone through different stages of depression and anxiety over about 3 decades. So these are the tools and aspects that I gain clarity on in overcoming them and outgrowing them. And this doesn't mean that in future I don't feel lower vibrational emotions, like sadness or anxiousness sometimes. That's natural and we're human. But, it's really coming to a space that, they no longer control me. I view them now as kind of a clue, a sign that, perhaps a change needs to be made. And, it can be really, overwhelming when you have an overactive nervous system or a nervous system that's dysregulated. And this really does come down to the thing we all talk about, which is healing. So I send you love through the screen. But, I can really tell you that, I believe that we can all get to a beautiful place and, grow and overcome these things. But we do have to make some hard decisions. We do have to do the healing. We do have to address some things within ourselves and with our environments as well. And, it is in doing these things that really helped to shift my perspective and actually led me onto a path to awaken, to change and gain a new connection with the universe, if you will. But if that doesn't resonate with you, that's okay. I really got to a space that I was no longer depressed, and that was something I struggled with for decades. I was someone who was always anxious. I was a people pleaser. I felt like I had no voice. I was never someone who could get in front of the screen. I was never someone who could be independent and do things on my own. I was always falling into these chronic cycles, and they can get really dark and really heavy and very overwhelming. So just know, I understand, to the best of my ability in your unique experience, where you're coming from. And I send you love through the screen, hugs. But, I just want to share my perspective and things that I have learned that have helped me along my unique journey to overcome them and, get to a better space. And I hope that they can help you. So, kind of addressing, my unique aspect of how I kind of embarked on a journey of self-discovery and the healing process. And it really just led me to, this perception that I have that, the universe saved me. You can say God, whatever it is you believe in. But it really was just me taking a leap of faith and doing the hard things that brought me to this space. But when I was able to kind of follow my path, my soul's path, kind of get into alignment with things that were authentic to me, that's when things started to change in my life and the depression started going away, and so did the anxiety. And that's what I feel, a lot of us struggle with, is that, a lot of us are out of alignment with who we are authentically. And that's, why we fall into these cycles of anxiousness, because I like to view that anxiety really comes from, the energy of your outer world. And, depression comes from, the elements of your inner world. And, when we don't address these things, they have an effect. So when, we can come to this space that we're embarking on a journey of stepping into our authenticity, stepping into, our inner authority, building confidence with ourselves, to be independent, to understand, who we are uniquely, what it is we like, and I didn't know who that was for 3 decades. I woke up at 30, looked in the mirror, and had no idea who was looking back at me. And that was truly, one of the scariest things in my life. And that's really, the clue is that, I was always stuck in these dark states because I didn't know who I was. I didn't know where I was going in life. I felt out of place. I was out of alignment with my soul's purpose and who I authentically was. And I was kind of coming to this space to understand that, who I perceived myself to be was just a lot of conditioning. It was things that I, kind of built on and layered on over the years, throughout my childhood, and, my environments growing up, and just kind of what's been built into society that all these layers kind of built on. And that's the overwhelm, is that, I was always anxious because I was, trying to please other people. I was always anxious because I was really focused on everything outside of myself. I was focused on, what direction I had to go, never knowing exactly what it is I liked. I was always, someone who's planning dates, planning events, trying to, do everything for other people. Those were things that I needed to heal in regards to my childhood, to understand that, if I don't do these things, it's all okay. I need to do, what's best for me to support my energy. So, when we are coming to a space that we're understanding and stepping into our authenticity, stepping into, discovering who we are, what we like, these things actually begin to fall away. So, yes, as I mentioned, I like to view it as, anxiety is, you kind of focused on everything outside of yourself. And then depression is kind of the focus of your inner world and the things, that we need to heal and do those things. And yes, this comes with, making hard decisions, recognizing some things, making some changes. But, they really shifted me, out of a dark space that I felt I could never leave for 3 decades. So let's get into today's episode. And, as I mentioned, if you feel called to get to a better space in, aligning with your unique path and going ahead to, gradually leave, these chronic cycles of depression and anxiety, then go ahead to check out the free energy movement, Elevate 88. I will post the link here, but it is a 6-hour free masterclass and program that can be built into your weekly routine in ways that are unique to you, because everything is energy. And it's something I really like to talk about, but if that doesn't resonate with you, that's perfectly okay. They're just simple steps that you can add into your weekly routine wherever you are in your journey. Because I know how overwhelming it can be to stick to these challenges, these routines, when we're feeling anxiety and, chronic depression. It's hard enough to get out of the bed sometimes. It's hard enough to actually, be calm and feel safe in our nervous system when we're feeling overwhelmed and anxious. And that's kind of where we get stuck, is we can't really partake a lot of the time in the things that are actually going to help us get out of this space and elevate to, a safer space in our nervous system and in our environments, that we can leave these chronic cycles of anxiety and depression. So, go ahead to check that out here. And it's really built for, your unique perspective, your unique, situation at the moment. Wherever you are uniquely on your journey, you can build this into your weekly routine in ways that are unique to you to help you get to that better space. And if you are looking for true transformation and, more of a soulful path with that, I will go ahead to post the link here and you can check out Quantum Power. It is a 6-month metamorphosis to bring you into a transformation, to align you with your soul's purpose, your higher self, and to embody that. And that goes, in aspects of healing and addressing these things that will help you out of the depression, anxiety you feel as well. So go ahead to check that out and, step into that new identity and really start manifesting that into your life and connecting with the universe to co-create the reality and way of living you desire. Because when we're living in authenticity, when we're living in alignment, then, a lot of the depression and anxiety really just falls away, because, we feel whole within ourselves. We're connecting, with the universe, with God. If those, resonate with you and you, believe in those things. But I do. So that's really, what I'm about. But yeah, I will go ahead to post the details here if you want to go ahead and check that out for that 6-month metamorphosis to step into that new identity, that new you. And I think you're deserving of that, to, allow yourself permission to, say goodbye to the caterpillar of this, depression, anxiety that you're feeling, and, go through that process that maybe, yes, is a bit of stagnation. Maybe, yes, is a little bit unknown, to discover yourself, do the healing, do some hard things, but will bring you, to awaken into that beautiful butterfly that you really deserve to be, feeling and living at. And truly, that was my experience, and that's my wish for you. So, depression, let's hop into it, shall we? So, what steps I took, big changes in regards to depression that really helped me uniquely on my journey to leave this chronic depression I always felt stuck to. So, I basically like to view depression as stagnation. You know, we will have to feel the grief, when we're going through depression, but depression is the call that your soul is trying to send you. Depression is really the emotion that is coming about because your soul is literally feeling like it's dying. It means you're out of alignment, you're in stagnation. And that's how I like to view it. And kind of looking back over the years, over the decades, all the time now, with my unique, perception and, my passion and beliefs with quantum physics and the universe and these details, I kind of view things, throughout my life in a different way now. But looking back, regardless of that, just, my mindset shift and self-development, it really just brings awareness to the fact that, I was out of alignment in life. I was not following, my soul's purpose. I was in environments and situations that were not authentically me. But that's because I didn't know who I was, for most of my life. I never felt I had that opportunity. I was out of alignment and not actually pursuing things. I wasn't pursuing growth. I wasn't really building and creating. I was more just, in this state of consumption. And that's a big thing that's built into our society. And I think that's why so many of us struggle with, depression, is that, we just, are kind of told that this is, normal for us just to be consuming all the time. And then we don't understand why we're feeling depressed, but it's because, we're kind of just questioning and doing a lot of the same. We're in stagnation. And that was me. I was going ahead to, go to my job and, come home and binge Netflix and consume media. And then go ahead to, learn things, but never do anything with it. And then, go ahead to, overconsume food because I was depressed. And then overconsuming alcohol because, I was going through chronic pain at the time. I was feeling, alone in my relationships. I was going ahead to consume. But I wasn't actually building anything. I didn't feel like I had purpose in life. I wasn't bringing about, change and meaning to other people in that way or the community. And it doesn't mean, I wasn't, a nice person, for the most part, I hope. I had my own traumas that I had to deal with, but I always really tried to come from an empathetic place over the years. And, that's just kind of what it's about. We're always learning and growing. That's part of the process. But, I wasn't actually contributing in that way to, society, the community. I was always feeling, lost in life. Every career that I was always saying, I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to, feel something. I was never really getting that. And it's just because I was out of alignment, understanding who I was authentically, what lit up my soul, and actually, just kind of building things that were unique to me that I could also, contribute to other people to help them along their journey as well. So kind of depression is this, aspect of stagnation. And, it's a hard thing. When you're deep in the depression, in the beginning, you really do have to go through the healing process. And the healing process is really kind of you addressing what has been repressed and also kind of addressing, what is not you. So as I mentioned, depression is your inner world. So what I have learned and kind of looking back at, my life, it is in doing the deep healing that is going to release a lot of it. So you really need to go into the darkness. And I know it's overwhelming. So get support if you need to. Reach out to me. Hopefully I can, help support you the best that I'm able, on my side of the world through the screen. But, it is in, doing the dark, deep healing that is going to lead you to a better space. But, we also can't just get stuck there. And that's something I recognize as well, is that when I started the healing journey, I fell into the victimhood for a long period of time. And, that's natural. So, I'm not saying, you need to get rid of that right away. I think that when you kind of come to awareness of things that maybe you were not aware of during your healing process, you will likely feel like a victim. Likely sometimes you were a victim. So you need to allow yourself to feel what's coming up in regards to what has been repressed. Over time, your emotions, your, memories from traumas or experiences, things you're trying to heal, and allow yourself to feel that, understand that, that's natural, that's okay, that's a good thing. And while it doesn't feel good in the moment, it needs to be done. We need to feel in order to release. And that's how I like to view things, is that, I like to view that everything is energy, in regards to quantum physics and these aspects. But, that's kind of how I view it in our nervous system. I was always, in depression, not understanding what the hell I was feeling, hard on myself and overwhelmed that I couldn't understand, the emotions I was feeling. So in switching my perception, I just kind of allowed myself to view it in this way. View it that you're feeling energy. That's it. You're just feeling energy. We don't always need to put a name to what we're feeling. We just need to understand that what's coming up, what we're feeling in our nervous system, no matter how overwhelming, we just need to allow ourselves to feel it, to let it be released. And it can be very overwhelming when we have repressed a lot. It can be very overwhelming when we are just starting out our journey and we have a dysregulated nervous system. But I just view it in this way, is that, it's like energy is blocked in your nervous system. And because we've been taught in life and in society to repress, there's blocks. So now you're just trying to allow things to flow through, because your nervous system is energy. It's a powerhouse. And what happens, with energy when it's compressed for long periods of time? It's like a nuclear bomb and eventually implodes. So that's kind of what we're feeling in our nervous system. And this is just kind of how I like to view it, my unique perception on the matter. And just shifting to this perspective that I didn't always need to put a name to something when I was, feeling, what needed to be felt in regards to the healing process. I allowed myself the opportunity to just feel, instead of, having to associate it with a term, that I was able to feel it in order to release it. Let it go, let it flow. And that's just a part of the process. So stagnation. Stagnation is your clue in depression. So kind of, it is about, yes, doing the healing. But, these steps really helped me in regards to depression. And, they are big steps, but they really just led me out of the depression I felt stuck to for such a long time. So number one, is kind of, taking a really drastic move. Taking a drastic move away from your environment, quantum leaping, if you will. And, this is the most profound thing that really helped me to leave depression, is that, depression, as I mentioned, I view as stagnation. So when we are, in our environments, yes, when we're doing the healing and stuff, I think sometimes we need to feel safe in our environments. And I think it's okay to, be at home, healing, but we don't want to get stuck there. And that's, where I was for a very long time. When I fell into the victimhood, I got stuck in the victimhood. I continued the process and the darkness just kept getting heavier. The depression kept getting worse because I wasn't allowing myself the opportunity to leave certain situations and environments that were actually, part of the cause. And, it is in switching things up and aligning with your soul's purpose, aligning with things that light you up. And it doesn't mean to avoid the healing that you need to do, but it is basically taking a leap of faith, getting out of your environment in a very big way. That sometimes that's exactly what we need, because subconsciously we are triggered by our environments. We are triggered by what is on repeat. And, like I mentioned, everything is energy. Sometimes, let's face it, we can't see energy, but sometimes things have an effect on us and we won't know or understand the reasons as to why. And sometimes that is just, the environments you're in. Sometimes that is, relationships that maybe are not, having the best intentions, or, they're misaligned, with who you are, where you're meant to go, what you're meant to pursue. Your soul is feeling out of alignment and it's leading you into this depression state and the stagnation of life. Because, people say it all the time with self-development, and it is true. We need to grow. We need to step into a path of expansion, of continuing, self-development to grow. And, that's when, we are feeling, less depressed. And people say it as well, when you are, partaking in fitness and you're going to the gym, but then, this is a part of it. You hear it all the time. And this was me, for a period of my life. I was going into the gym, just pumping iron, drinking my protein drinks, crushing it. But the second I got home in that environment, I fell back into a depression almost instantly. And that's the clue, is that our environments trigger us. So it doesn't always need to be understood as to why, but in taking a big step to really leave our environments for a period of time, it maybe might help us to, find realizations and just fall into alignment in that way. So, whether that is just kind of, removing yourself from your job, taking a break from that for a period of time. Maybe it is your job that is part of the depression, the stagnation. You're feeling out of alignment with that. It's causing a lot of stress. It's leading you to feel drained in energy. That could be a part of it. Maybe it is your home environment. You really just need to shake things up. Go ahead to take a leap of faith. Just leave the environment in general. Get outside. Take some time, alone with yourself. And, you could even just go on a trip, just book a one-way ticket, travel around, whatever's calling to you. And that's going to be unique to you. But sometimes it needs to be drastic. It needs to be something where you basically are just kind of, leaving your environments for a prolonged period of time to see what makes you feel. And, this is a big thing as well. And people talk about this all the time, but we fall into this cycle that we fall back into the depression because we return to our environments. People who travel and, they leave and they travel and they're so excited and they are not feeling depressed at all. They are feeling in alignment. They are feeling happy. And, they come back. And the second they come back, they want to book a ticket and get the hell out of there. And that's the clue that we ignore. That's the clue that we avoid. That where we're living, how we're living life, the environment sometimes, it is stagnation. It is misaligned with, the path we're meant to take. We're meant to explore. We're meant to, embark on a journey of self-discovery. We're meant to grow. And that means, doing things that are currently unknown. That means getting out of our comfort zone, our environments. And a lot of the time we're just triggered back into the depression because, our subconscious mind just recognizes naturally that we've been in a depression in this environment. We've been in this state for prolonged periods of time. So when we, return to the environment, naturally our subconscious mind just goes on to what was on repeat. Okay, now you're going to feel this way. And sometimes that is just what it's about. So, do something that feels, right to you, but leave your environment for, a prolonged period of time and see how that makes you feel. Make some hard decisions, do those things. But that really did help me, in a lot of different, times in my life, leave the depression. And number 2 with depression, begin doing things alone. And this is something we do not talk about in regards to depression, but I think it is vital, is that, we feel depressed because we don't know who we are. We need to step into our authenticity. And, that was me. And I say this from a loving, empathetic place. But I thought I knew who I was for 30 years until I realized I had no idea. I just built on these layers of, a self, a person that I kind of just told to be, through my childhood, through school, through our environments, through society. And then I kind of woke up one day and was like, okay, why am I always depressed? Okay, well, I don't really know what I want to do in life. I don't really know who I am. I don't really know what I like. I am codependent. I've never lived on my own. And that's a part of it, is that, sometimes we need to understand that we are feeling depressed because 1, as I mentioned, we're out of alignment with our soul's path. But 2, we are not, living a life that's authentic to us. And that's a part of it. Because when you're in alignment, living your soul's purpose, you are living an authentic life. But sometimes we need to discover who that is. We need to discover what lights up our soul. We need to discover that, maybe what is making us feel depressed just isn't right for us. And, we can give ourselves permission to leave it. And, that's something that, we've been told, follow the status quo, make sure you have safety, do this way, not this way. And then we get stuck in this cycle that, we keep falling into a depression because we're doing kind of what we've been told, what we've done forever. But when we can really take a leap of faith and start doing things on our own and really discovering what it is we like, the depression gradually begins to fall away. And this is just a part of the process. So, go ahead to start doing things alone and discovering, what it is you like. And that can even be just you starting with, going on self dates. And that was me. I was never someone who could be alone. And this is so many people. This is so many of us, is that, we often, don't even feel comfortable eating in a restaurant alone with ourselves, for dinner. And, that's kind of, the thing, is that we should feel confident to be our authentic selves in any space we choose, regardless of people there or not. And, that was me for so long. I could not even feel comfortable going to a cafe by myself. I had all of these layers of, self-criticism, self-doubt. I didn't feel confident in the least. And I didn't really know who I was or what I liked. So going on self dates is kind of bringing you to a space to build that confidence in your authenticity and to, stand on your own, become independent. And, that will, build confidence with yourself that you leave depression, because, leaving depression comes to a space to understand as well that when you feel, confident as your authentic self, you are more willing to make difficult decisions, because you understand that, I'm not going to fall into this depression because I am knowing who the hell I am, and I am independent to make those decisions in regards to that. And that's something I learned over the years, and it takes time. So, take it one day at a time. It's a process. You can't just snap your fingers and do that. And I had to go through that as well. It's very difficult. So give yourself some love and understanding to, realize that, it's brave to, embark on a path of self-discovery. It's brave to dip your toe into doing things alone. And, it really is a beautiful space and something that, we're meant to be doing. We're all unique individuals. We need to step into a path of authenticity and feeling that we can be our authentic selves in any space we choose. None of us deserve to be feeling alone in our environments, in our relationships. And that's a part of it as well, is that, when we feel that we are not, confident or independent to be on our own, sometimes, and this was me, I would stay in relationships because I didn't feel I could leave them. I felt like, I had to just continue with them. And, it's not to say, the relationships or the people weren't wonderful. Some of them did have ill intentions, unfortunately. But that's okay. That's a part of life. We all have lessons to learn. I wasn't a peach either. It's really just coming to a space to understand that, when we are not really feeling independent to be on our own, we fall into this depression because we're feeling alone in our environments. We're feeling alone in our relationships. And, that was me for a very long time, is that I felt out of place, and no one deserves that. You deserve to feel whole within yourself, and feeling lonely is natural. That is a natural thing as humans, that naturally we're going to feel lonely sometimes. But, if you're feeling alone, that is the clue. That is the problem, is that, we should not feel alone. We should feel whole within ourselves, regardless, of the relationships we're in, or if we're doing things alone. So it's in embarking on a path to, figure out what you like, stepping into your authenticity and confidence, and, becoming independent in that sense, that is going to help you leave the depression. Because, as I mentioned, when you can get to this space, you are more willing to, make hard decisions that are aligned with you. You understand who you are. And, yes, it is hard sometimes making these decisions to, set boundaries or leave situations. But, it is helping you leave the depression because you understand what's right for you. And, people in your life, if you're setting boundaries with them in regards to, you leaving your depression, you kind of embarking on a journey of self-discovery, they should really, I say this from a loving, empathetic place, people who really care about you, should really try to understand that, you doing hard things, you setting boundaries, you embarking on, a journey of self-discovery that maybe, people in your life may not understand, is you doing a hard thing to bring you to a better space. So people who really care about you should understand that. And, likely, if they care about you, they will support that. And it is a hard thing, and it's something to heal from. And it does bring, some sorrow and some sadness. And I went through this as well. I had to say goodbye to some really beautiful friends. But, for the most part, they really understood where I was coming from. I just was misaligned in my life. I was falling into depression all the time. And it's a heavy thing. And I always get emotional talking about it. That's what I mean. We have to make hard decisions. But it helps you onto a path of alignment, because everyone has the right to choose. Everyone has the right to choose to grow. But it is in growth that we're all supposed to be taking this path, this journey. And this helps you to leave the depression. And really, that's my wish for you. It's a beautiful thing. I want you to experience it, because, depression's so hard and it's so heavy. So I send you love through the screen, and I've been there in so many different situations throughout my life. So number 3 is kind of what I already just jumped into, which is, depression is aloneness. And, as I mentioned, it's not about loneliness, it's about feeling alone. So when we are kind of going ahead to address our environments and our relationships, it's just, coming to a space to become aware that, maybe we don't know who we authentically are. And also maybe kind of the environments and relationships that we're feeling alone because, they're misaligned. And it doesn't mean, they didn't align at one time, but maybe you are kind of recognizing a shift. Maybe you are kind of recognizing, something's changing. You need to step into a different path, do different things. But, you don't want to face that fact because it's going to bring on added pain. So we avoid it. And the more we avoid making these hard decisions, to embrace the change, the more we fall into a deep, dark depression. So, going ahead to understand that, sometimes we feel alone is, the things we don't want to face. And, this could be, even you just kind of recognizing, okay, I'm going to actually just start doing things that feel right to me. I'm going to set boundaries. I'm going to stop, people pleasing all the time, doing, all of these aspects. And I'm just going to focus on myself. And you hear this all the time. And, this was me as well in, certain, environments and relationships, is that, when we kind of go ahead to choose ourselves to embark on a path of self-growth and focusing on our healing, we go ahead to kind of just stop, to just kind of observe. And, this was me, and this, is talked about a lot in a lot of different, aspects, and I hear it all the time, with my clients, and I hear it all the time just in general, is that, we come to a space that we kind of stop doing everything for other people. And, you go ahead to stop making plans. You go ahead to stop checking in on people and you don't hear from them. And that's the sad realization we don't want to face. And that's the thing that we don't want to face. And that's the thing we avoid. Our ego leads us to avoid this because our ego knows that when we kind of choose this path to address the aloneness we feel in our environments and in our relationships, it's going to add, some pain because we have to do that healing to come to the awareness and recognize that, okay, maybe I am really out of place. Maybe I've just been trying to, please everyone. Maybe, these are aspects that I need to shift in my life to understand that I deserve, reciprocation in that sense. And, this is a hard thing that we have to face, is that when we're feeling alone, loneliness is natural, but when we're feeling alone, this is, what is leading us to depression, and we need to face these things. And that's hard. So, take it one day at a time, do the healing and address those things, and it'll really help you get to a better space. And lastly, with depression, number 4, which is to pursue that calling, that soul's call, that thing that is calling to you. I like to talk about, the universe and, soul's passion. And, I'm more of a spiritual sense person now. And that wasn't me for, 3 decades of my life. But really, that's just about, to me, self-development as well. But, in pursuing that calling, that thing that calls to us, you are stepping into alignment with your soul's purpose, your path, the things that light you up. And, what lights you up isn't a state of depression at all. It is the things we want to feel. But we face a lot of resistance doing this. We face a lot of resistance to step into what's unknown. And that goes back to, the step in starting to do things on your own, which is going to kind of lead you into this, last step as well, to pursue the unknown, to pursue that calling. And, I like to view this as our higher self, our soul basically guiding us into alignment, guiding us onto the path to actually leave the depression. But we have to push through the resistance. We have to do what's uncomfortable to step into what's unknown. And often we need to do this on our own. And that's a part of it. We really just need to break free from what we're currently doing in our environments. We need to break free, in stepping into our independence and doing things alone, regardless if people want to join us, to do these things. But it isn't pursuing that calling, that thing that lights you up, the thing that calls to you, that is going to bring you out of the depression gradually. And, when we feel depressed, we're just living a life, outside of what lights us up. We are, living out of alignment with our purpose. So it's kind of a combination, in pursuing that calling, is that, you're living out your passions in life and you are kind of being of service to people. And that really is what it's about. That calling that, maybe you're someone who loves painting. You have a lot of resistance with it, but you love painting. But, maybe you have a lot of self-doubt And, when you step into that, push through, keep doing that, keep practicing it. Something you can share with the world, something to inspire others to do. Share it on social media. Go ahead to take little steps every day to start painting more. That's your soul's calling. That's your flow. It brings you joy. It leads you out of the depression. Go ahead to understand that, maybe you're someone who really loves gardening. Maybe that is your soul's calling. That's a part of it. Our purpose, our soul's calling doesn't have to be one thing. It could be a lot of different things. But we need to really start embracing the change, to really start pursuing the things that light us up, the things that call to us, that really bring us joy. Because this is living a life of alignment with our purpose. It could be you just feeling the call to, embark on a trip. You've always wanted to go to, I don't know, Italy, let's say. That's your clue. That's your calling. It calls to you. Maybe you push it aside for decades. You say, when I have the funds, I'll go. That's the sign. That's the stagnation. That's the resistance, the avoidance, is that, we could have been saving for decades. We could have gone already. And I say this from a loving place, because that was me. I faced a lot of resistance in my life to pull the trigger on things, to embrace change. And we can feel really stuck to do this. And this is why we are in the depression, because we're stagnant, we're out of alignment, we're not growing. And, it isn't pursuing that thing that calls to you that is going to help you out of the depression. It's going to align you onto the path for your soul's purpose that leads you to a life of fulfillment. It leads you to a life of authenticity. And me, I love to talk about the law of attraction. And, if you're being authentic, that is really what you're attracting into your life. Because, everything holds a vibration, everything's energy, everything is a frequency. So with the law of attraction, it's who you're being, who you embody, and that goes with the beliefs you hold, the actions you take, all the different elements of, who you are being, that you're attracting into your life. And, that begs the question, if I am feeling depressed, am I, living a life that feels unfulfilled? Then who is it I am being? Because it's clearly not authentic to me. Because if it were authentic to us, we would not feel depressed. We would feel joy. We would feel peace. We would feel whole within ourselves, because it would be authentic. And that's the clue, is that we need to really step into, discovering who we are, rediscovering who we are, and kind of shedding and unbecoming what has been conditioned, which, are parts of our subconscious mind, our habits, how we approach life, our perception, different elements that just feel misaligned with who we authentically are. And it's a process. So going ahead to pursue that calling is going to help you to leave the depression that you feel. Now, the anxiety. So as I mentioned, anxiety is really just getting to address your outer world for the most part. The anxiousness that we feel that leads us into a state of fight or flight, the overwhelm. And, that's something we don't want to feel. And, this was me for decades in, various different stages in how my nervous system was functioning. I grew up in an environment where I kind of just got thrown into living, all the time in a state of fight or flight. So it's all I really knew. So I know anxiety pretty well. It is not enjoyable. It is very confusing. A lot of the time we don't even know it's there. And it's a process. And a lot of the time, when you're always, in chronic anxiety, your nervous system's always, overwhelmed, that it often just leads you into depression because you fall into burnout. So it's just kind of like a cycle. And we don't want that. I want you to leave that. It sucks. So anxiety, getting to a space to address our outer world, that's kind of what it's about, is that, it's the overwhelm of energy that we're feeling. And that kind of comes with removing yourself to uncover what is triggering you. So that is step number one with anxiety, is that, we need to remove ourselves from the environment. And, I kind of mentioned that in depression, but, with depression, it's more just for a period of time of self-exploration to really just, discover what it is you like, what feels right to you. But when it comes to anxiety, the point of removing yourself from your environment is actually to uncover the triggers. So this, yes, might be a little more, hard to face sometimes. And, often, with this aspect, we need to do it for, extended periods of time, depending on what feels right to you with your anxiety, your situation, in regards to what you're removing yourself from. Because that could be, you feel called to go into a contact with someone. Maybe you're questioning it. I kind of view that as, if you're questioning it, you need to kind of investigate that. because, that's often our intuition telling us something. And, that was me, is that, when I decided to remove myself, for a period of time, communicating to people that, I needed to do some healing. I wasn't feeling safe. I was trying to get to a healthier space, that I was going to be no contact for a period of time. There were certain relationships, I went no contact for about 6 months because that's what felt right to me. And I was not someone who set boundaries in the past. Like, these were very difficult, times for me. I was making hard decisions. I was doing what was really uncomfortable, but that felt right to me. Because just in doing these things, we need to do what our intuition is telling us. We need to do what feels right to us, even if it's really difficult. It was kind of going through this process that I recognized, in certain situations, certain relationships, that, that was the trigger, that was the cause. And it helped to bring that to my awareness that, in going no contact, not just removing myself, but actually not having contact, in certain, relationships, it kind of really just allowed that anxiety to fall away. I wasn't being triggered, and this kind of goes with, I don't like the term, but, narcissistic relationships. Sometimes you're just triggered into anxiousness because, you have things that you need to heal. It's a lot of different aspects, and those will be unique to you. But, in removing ourselves from our environments and our relationships, it will help us to find the triggers as to why we're feeling anxious. And, it doesn't have to be as heavy as that, but sometimes if you're feeling called to do that, I really recommend that you need to listen to your gut and take a leap of faith and do that hard thing, because it will help to bring that to your awareness. And, that is what's going to lead you out of anxiety. And it's a hard thing to face, but, if you want to get to a better space, you need to make those hard decisions. And I send you love through the screen. It's a hard process. But, in, less intense situations, just kind of removing yourself from, your environments and your relationships, it can just look smaller. It will just help to lead you to the triggers as to why you're feeling anxious. And sometimes that's just kind of coming to a space that, okay, I've removed myself from, my friendship groups. I've taken some time, away from my home. I've taken some time away from my career. Now I'm kind of recognizing, how showing up in my life, I need to do some inner work and address these things. Maybe you were a person who was always, overexerting yourself. You were people pleasing, and this is what was leading you into the anxiousness. You were focused on your outer world and, doing what other people were kind of, expecting of you, or that you felt that you needed to do. And, that's, you at work perhaps taking on all the workload, not getting paid for it. But, maybe that comes to your understanding now in removing yourself from that environment, that now you become aware, okay, I've never set boundaries in my life. Why do I feel that it is okay, that this is okay because I'm not getting paid for this? Why do I feel that I can accept this in my life? Maybe I need to set boundaries in regards to this. Maybe I need to address, some things of, how I perceive and accept this in my life, to understand that, this is not healthy. This is not for me. It's leading me into anxiety. It's leading me to ill health. So, that's not something that we want. It's not something you deserve. And we need to, kind of address those things. It could be in removing yourself from, I don't know, your home environment, that you kind of recognize you're no longer anxious. And that kind of begs the question as to why. Maybe it is, unfortunately, like someone you live with that is making you feel anxious. And that might be things that you need to heal from your childhood. If you're someone who always feels anxious about, I don't know, cleaning or something as simple as that. But maybe that's just something that, has been built in your subconscious mind, or, from a trauma from your childhood, that, you feel that when you live with someone, things need to be clean all the time. You need to, be presenting yourself, doing all the cooking, doing all the cleaning. Maybe that just, leads you into this state of fight or flight, that, you feel that you need to do these things. Maybe unfortunately it is kind of coming to the awareness that, you're feeling anxious because for whatever reason your nervous system is just feeling, unsafe in your environment, in this relationship. And that's something that you need to address. And that will be kind of, in regards to a unique aspect. It could just be you feel anxious, at home because maybe you don't like being alone. Maybe you live alone and you feel anxious all the time when you're at home. And that could just be, a trauma that you need to heal, to understand that, you feel anxious. You feel like you always need to be around people because you haven't taken the time to, be alone, feeling whole within yourself. And that kind of goes with the the depression as well, kind of coming to a space that we feel whole and safe, with ourselves and that independence. But, that's something, that we can address as well with anxiety, is that, sometimes that could be an aspect of anxiety, is that, we need to heal those codependency wounds, or, even just coming to a space that we are comfortable and feel safe to be on our own. And that was me. I was always so overwhelmed in my nervous system, in fight or flight all the time. And, it was in the first time I practiced mindfulness, and all I did was sit in a room and stare at a wall for 15 minutes. And I can tell you, at the time, it was one of the most overwhelming, experiences I've had in my nervous system. All of these thoughts that I had no idea I had just kind of came about. Everything that we repress doesn't go away. Everything that's repressed is still there. So that's kind of what led me, into this anxious state all the time, is things I couldn't perceive. I was always focused on the doing, planning things for other people, focusing on my career, doing all of these things, but I wasn't really focusing on myself. And I wasn't really becoming aware of the triggers in my environments and my relationships, and just kind of coming to a space in removing myself from them, and, building that independence, being on my own, practicing stillness, that, I began to kind of recognize, the cause of all of this anxiety. And anxiety, yes, it does come with your outer world, but it also does come with, self-reflection and addressing your inner world and healing as well. Healing goes with depression, anxiety. Healing goes with everything. So, go ahead to remove yourself from your environment and, your relationships for a period of time. Do what you're feeling called to do, what feels right to you. And that will just help to bring clarity to what is kind of triggering you in your nervous system into this state of fight or flight. And number 2 is that, facing yourself through healing and the nervous system and the limiting beliefs. And this is going to help you with anxiety, is that, we need to face ourselves. And, this is a hard one. I feel like anxiety, is a different aspect of depression, but anxiety really comes to really making some harder decisions in that sense. Getting out of depression is more, self-exploration, discovering who we are, and it's still difficult to, outgrow and heal from. But anxiety is really, setting some hard decisions, really just facing some things we really don't want to face. And that's really just because, depression, we're kind of falling into this state, we're numbed out. Anxiety is our nervous system, very much overwhelmed. So we need to face ourselves. And when we are focused on our outer world, addressing these things, our environments, our relationships, we also need to come to the understanding that we need to face ourselves to understand the root cause of the anxiety. And as I mentioned, this will go with healing. This will go with addressing, our limiting beliefs. And sometimes, the anxiety that we feel is just kind of what's been built on our subconscious mind, the programs, the patterns. And that will come with the healing and addressing the nervous system and doing those aspects as well. But it's facing ourselves to understand, how we're showing up in life that, we need to bring to our awareness. If we're someone who people pleases, that's for us to, step into the change. That's for us to make those decisions and kind of understand that, we are the reason that we're staying in this anxiousness. Yes, we don't deserve to be feeling what we're feeling. It's been layered on from our experiences and our past, and I understand that. It is a hard thing. We need to heal those wounds. And you definitely don't deserve ill treatment that you've experienced in the past that possibly led you there. I've been there, I totally get it. But, we need to face ourselves and do that hard thing to understand, okay, if I want to leave this anxiety, I have to face myself and really address these things. To understand that, okay, I'm not a victim to my life. The things that, happened to me, yes, maybe I was a victim, but I can choose to become the hero to my life. I can face the truth of myself and understanding where these limiting beliefs, where these patterns came from, heal those wounds of the root they're connected to of the past, and then just, gradually continue the process. And this part isn't fun, but, this really helps you out of the anxiety. You really gain an awareness to understand, what is the cause of your anxiety a lot of the time. And a lot of the time it's just, things we need to heal, things we need to address. Because if we're always, a person who's people pleasing, we will continue that cycle. And until we face ourselves to understand where the root cause of where it came from, until we face ourselves, understand, okay, I need to be the one to set boundaries with this. I need to be the one to choose to change. I need to do the hard thing. It's coming into the awareness of facing ourselves to say, if I continue this path of feeling, like I'm a victim to my life, it's going to continue the path of leading me to this state of anxiousness, because I'm always going to feel overwhelmed in what's going on. And it's a hard thing. Coming to a space where we can face ourselves, it's really just kind of coming to recognize the things and how we're showing up in life as well. And that really just comes to sometimes, things we do that maybe we don't like, that came from our experiences, our traumas, but that lead us into this anxious state. And I say this from a loving, empathetic place, but this was me, is that I needed to face myself. I was always somebody who, I always, was trying to help people grow. I was always, coming from a space, trying to be, empathetic. I like to view myself as a really kind person, but, we all have a shadow. And, it was in kind of recognizing how I was showing up in life, situations I was, trying to stay in. One, I had to face myself to understand I don't have self-worth. And that comes from a root from my past. I need to heal that. I need to address that. I need to face myself with that to understand I have no self-worth at all. So I'm staying in situations that are leading me into anxiety, into a state of fight or flight that I could leave, I could set boundaries with. And, that's a hard thing to face. But, it's also coming into the awareness that, I was always in a state of fight or flight. This is, a part or a stage in my life where I was reactive all the time. I felt so overwhelmed with, confrontation. And that comes, yes, from trauma. That comes from, a childhood wound that I needed to heal. But I literally felt like I could not, have a confrontational conversation. I would literally leave my house and run laps around the neighborhood at 10 at night, if my partner and I were having a difficult time. And while I would always communicate this, that I'm really trying to heal and I don't want to get upset. I don't want to feel triggered to yell at you. I need to leave this house because I'm feeling anxious and overwhelmed beyond in my nervous system. I would go ahead to switch things up to face myself to say, I don't like how I'm showing up here. I would face myself to say, okay, communicate with my partner that maybe when I get into this state, just allow me time to go sit in the bathroom by myself so I can calm my nervous system, because I don't want to, be having a conversation, an argument when I'm in this state, because it's not going to come out in the best way. But it's in facing ourselves that we're really just kind of coming to a space to recognize, how am I showing up and why am I feeling anxious? Why am I feeling overwhelmed? And that is, addressing our past traumas, those wounds, but facing ourselves to understand that we have, the opportunity to change, to choose, to heal them, and also, shift how we approach life. Because I understand, so well, how when we're feeling a state of fight or flight, we can become reactive. We can become overwhelmed. We can feel like a victim. We can point the finger. We can, fall into these states. And, it's not always about those aspects, but those do come up when we're living in a state of anxiety, in the heavy sense, when we're in fight or flight. So it's in facing ourselves that gradually over time we heal these wounds. We recognize, where they come from in our patterns and our, beliefs of the subconscious that are built on from our traumas, that we can get to a better space and we can let those go. And I know that's heavy, but this is what really helped me, in facing the self in the mirror, to kind of recognize I have the opportunity always to choose how I show up in life. I have the opportunity to change. I have to face myself to understand I want to be somebody who shows up in a certain way. And while yes, I'm always trying to communicate with people and come from an empathetic place, it doesn't always mean that people hear you. It doesn't always mean that people understand where you're coming from. And I totally get that as well. Is that when you're feeling anxious, when you're feeling like you're going through healing and people don't understand, communicate to the best of your ability. But, it's also in facing yourself, to understand as well that sometimes it is your environment, sometimes it is your relationships that are leading you into this trigger. And, that was me for a lot of, the time as well, is that I was communicating with people, in so many different ways. I was in chronic anxiety, fight or flight, because, I just felt unheard. I was communicating all these different ways, trying to address my own healing, all of these aspects. but people just couldn't hear me. They couldn't understand me. Some people just really, unfortunately didn't care. And that's okay. And, it's just coming to this space that when you face yourself, you face your environments, you face your relationships. And these are the hard things, the hard decisions that we have to do to set boundaries with, to leave situations, to leave old, perceptions and views that we have, in our lives that really help to get us out of the anxiety into a better space. And I know that one is heavy and that was very overwhelming, but anxiety is overwhelming at times. And step number 3 that will help you with anxiety is that, we talk about the practices all the time. And yes, they work. The breath work, the somatic practices, the EFT, the hot and cold exposure, the yoga, the meditation. But, as I mentioned, if we don't do the healing, if we don't address things in our environment and relationships, we're not really going to leave the anxiety. We're just kind of putting a band-aid on the situation for a period of time. So, yes, we need to face that fact. That's really, where number 3 comes in, and that is really, becoming independent to feel safe in our nervous system. And that will come with, different aspects. And that really comes with, healing our codependency that leads us into this anxious state all the time. That, if we're feeling like we've never lived on our own, we're always going to feel anxious that we're not, feeling safe in our nervous system to be independent, to be on our own. That could be your situation or relationship you have with your finances, that perhaps, you do not feel safe and secure, in your nervous system, and you're feeling anxious all the time because you don't have a healthy relationship with your finances, that sense of security. We can kind of come to these different aspects, in different situations, but it's really about you becoming independent in ways that help you feel safe in your nervous system, regulated, that will help you to heal from anxiety. And, this comes with, 2 big aspects as well. And that's learning to set boundaries and giving yourself a voice. And, this is something I experienced, for most of my life, is that I felt I never had a voice. I never set boundaries for my whole life. And, that's so many of us who suffer with anxiety. So really, bringing those 2 aspects into your life are going to bring you to a space that you can step into your independence and becoming, safe and secure in your nervous system. Setting boundaries with yourself, setting boundaries with other people, with your career, whatever it may be. Just learning to set boundaries, dipping your toe into that and gradually, getting to a space that you feel comfortable with that. And, giving yourself a voice. A lot of the time we feel anxious because we feel like we can't speak our truth. We can't say no. We can't, go ahead to give our opinion. And that's really, addressing our relationships. That's really, doing those aspects to understand that if we feel we do not have a voice, we are not really welcome to have an opinion. We feel unheard and unseen, in our relationships, in our environments, at work, whatever it may be. That's kind of the clue we need to face, is that this is leading me into anxiety because I am feeling, anxious. I am feeling dysregulated in my nervous system because I do not feel safe. I do not feel that I, am able to speak my own side of things. I do not feel like I have a voice in this situation. And that's just a part of it. So, in taking those 2 aspects into your life, it will help you to feel safe and secure in your nervous system. And that's a gradual process that will help you to leave the anxiety over time. And, that is today's episode of my unique and, detailed, experiences and perception of, how I, over the years, left, chronic cycles of depression and anxiety. And, some key aspects that I feel like we don't talk about enough. We like to talk about the little things, but, sometimes it is kind of getting deep, getting real, speaking your truth, and, really just coming to a space to understand that, anxiety and depression is going to be, a healing journey unique to you. But, it is in doing the hard things that is going to lead us out of these states. And, it brings you to a better space that you really start to recognize and feel that. You leave the depression and you recognize, oh my God, this feels so great. And then you go ahead to leave the anxiety. You say, oh, this feels wonderful. And really, it's just living a life of alignment, living like you are, feeling comfortable and safe to be your authentic self in your environments, in your relationships, and, in your career as well. And that's really, what it's about, is that, we're meant to be living a life that's authentic to us. We're meant to feel, that we can be independent and confident and standing in our authenticity. And that really is the path that leads us out of, the anxiety and the depression over time. And there's a lot of different aspects to it. But, these tools I hope help you along your journey of healing and growth and expansion, and just getting to a better space in your mindset and in your nervous system and in your environments as well to align with beautiful relationships and living a life that's beautiful and authentic to you out of, the chronic depression and anxiety that I know can feel so overwhelming and then we often feel stuck to. So know that I believe in you and I send you love through the screen. And I really believe that you can get to a healed and elevated space in that way. And truly, that's my wish for you. So thank you for joining me on today's episode of Awaken Mindset. And I hope that you continue your path and follow those paths that call to you in your own unique way. Keep shining, lovely beings. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of Awaken Mindset. And if you feel a call, go ahead to check out theautommindset.com for mindset and energy guidance to lead you onto a path of elevated vibration and to embody the frequency of authenticity to live your dream reality. Keep shining, lovely beings, and follow those paths that call to you.